Hi, I'm Julia Lewald.
And I'm Eric Lewald.
And you're watching
Toyquest101.
My name is Ilya, this is my father Miguel.
And you guys heard it right. I know we've done so many X-Men animated series shows prior to this, and we thought it was just about time to get the writers and the showrunners of the show, the core element of what the X-Men animated series was on the show. Thank you guys so much. This is such an honor for me because I've been a fan. You guys have been my childhood. I'm sure you get that from everybody. But honestly, I grew up in Puerto Rico most of my life. I had 3 channels. One was the cartoons in the morning, so I got to see X-Men animated series in English, and I got to see them in Spanish. And I mean, you guys introduced me to comic books. I love comic books, and now with the X-Men animated series being more popular than I think it was before, now with social media, Disney Plus, the DVDs, now a new generation has come to also love the show, and we're gonna keep that memory alive. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having us, Miguel.
Yeah, really, thank you so much.
Awesome. So let's get started because I know we have a lot on the show. We're going to get to know who you guys are. So the first question is, tell us a little bit about yourselves, how you started in your careers, and what made you become writers. Lead us up to when you got the call to work on the X-Men animated series.
Well, okay, the fast, slow version is, or the slow, fast version is, like you mentioned, you grew up in Puerto Rico. I grew up in Texas and didn't know that you could get paid to write for TV when I was living there. And it wasn't until senior year in college when someone said, I'm moving to California. Why don't you come along? It's like, you can do that. You can just move to California. So I did, with an eye toward trying to break into the writing world somehow, some way. It didn't matter what door would open eventually if I could kick one in. And it took a long time.
5 years?
10
years?
Because I was becoming a lawyer at the same time, but I didn't know what else to do to try and make my way in. Then I got my first job was my dream job, and it was writing animation for the Disney afternoon that was just getting started.
Right.
And the guy in the room next door, in the office next door, was this one.
Yeah. So, and I'd stumbled out here from Tennessee. Also, grew up there. There's not a whole lot of TV writing work in Tennessee. So, if you loved movies and TV the way I did, you had to come out here. And it's the same kind of thing for me. It was a number of years, and then it happened. This is a few years before I met Julia. I'm a little older. A neighbor was working at Hanna-Barbera, and they suddenly needed new writers. They got a bunch of new shows okayed. And I'd been writing nonstop for about 10 years. And so I had something I could show his boss, and she liked it okay enough to let me in the door a little bit to pitch. And a friend of mine from college and I got one show okayed, and they liked that enough. And, hundreds and hundreds of episodes later, the career's still going. So it was being ready at that when I bumped into a neighbor and taking that opportunity that made it all happen.
We each were under 3-year contracts at Disney, and once that expired for each of us, we were then out in the freelance universe, which was very scary and continues to be, but that's basically how the world is now. And I started a little later, so I had a few more months on my contract, and you were doing other work in the freelance world, and you started working.
Yeah. For a year, I worked. I did a season of Beetlejuice for the people at Fox, and they're Margaret Lash and Sidney Iwander, who are the president and her right-hand man. They're at Fox Kids Network, and they were just getting started, and they were frantically to put a show together. As you said, growing up, there were 3 networks, and Fox was new. It was kind of a half a network.
Brand new.
And they had maybe 5 to 10% of the audience, and NBC, ABC, CBS had 90-some percent between them. And so they wanted to make their mark. And what they did was, when they called me for the opportunity to do the X-Men, you know, the word was, we want to do something special and we want to get attention. So you guys are going to get to write, you know, more incredible stuff than you've had a chance to heretofore. So it's their opportunity was what made it all happen.
So from Disney to the freelance universe to Beetlejuice to X-Men is kind of how that track happened.
Right, and that's exactly how I got the job. I didn't know about it. You know, I got a call on a Sunday night saying tomorrow morning be ready to talk to Stan Lee and 30 other people about X-Men.
Yeah.
But I didn't know them.
Right.
I barely knew they were a comic book, and so I just had to kind of smile and get through it. And then good friends there that on the show that did know X-Men backwards and forwards helped me learn it really fast.
And again, go back in time, there was no internet.
No
back
web.
then.
Yeah.
No web. Yeah, it's really hard to imagine then, but there was no way to call up information very quickly, if at all. So yeah.
And it was Sunday night, so the comic book stores were closed. So
Yeah.
no way we could do that way. But it came fast, and there's good. There are a couple good books like the X-Men, the Marvel Universe had this massive research book that I was able to catch up on who everybody was and what their powers were and what they meant to each other.
This was back in '92.
February '92, and then we cranked on the stories for about 5 months, and a couple months after that, the animation came back, and it all got started.
And you are, we're calling you showrunner. You have a credit on every episode as developed for television by, created by Eric Lewald. I'm a writer for the show. I got to write some of the scripts and pitch some that became scripts. So yeah, just the separation of powers here.
Yeah, so I was more the overseer, the foreman, the general contractor for the job, and I had to hire half dozen, you know, my favorite writers to better be my wife.
Yeah, right.
Would have been ugly. Yeah.
I had to hire my favorite writers to be part of the staff, and over the 5 years, over the 76 episodes, we had 20 different people write for me, and that was my 90% of my focus had to be making sure that the show stayed on focus so that it was consistent, but yet each show was different and fresh, and we had a balance of characters. And so I was I really enjoyed writing individual scripts for shows, but when you're running the show, you just don't have much extra time. And so my real job was making sure everybody else's script was right, and coming up with a lot of the stories, but just keeping my focus on the big picture and letting the writers do their work.
Listen, you guys did a phenomenal job. I mean, in and out. Like I said, we're talking how many years later, and we're still talking about the X-Men animated series. That's
it's almost 30 years.
Yeah, and I know you guys had influences on other works and stuff, so you guys did a phenomenal job. Like I said, now it's starting to kick into new generations, and man, you guys are awesome. So thank you for that. Eliana, why don't you ask your question, because this is a good one. Who
is your favorite X-Men and why?
Ooh. Well, okay, two-parter here for me now, because I'm talking to the next generation of fans. I gotta say, just in general, without even being conscious of it at the time back in '92, the team is so balanced that to me the most kick-ass X-Men are the women. You know, it's like Storm, you know, and it wasn't a deal where it made the guys less amazing. It was organically that every person on that team was amazing. Some happened to be women, some happened to be men. And I'm really looking back on that now. It's like, that was pretty damn cool.
Yeah, it's something to be very proud of, because you gave women empowerment before, back when almost it wasn't a thing. And let me tell you, Rogue, Jean, all the women,
Storm,
you know, they held their own. They held their own. So that's awesome.
On a personal level, and I always come back to this, being the writer, it was always fun to write for Beast, because he was always the smartest guy in the room. All right.
That's her favorite.
Oh my God. Smartest person in the room, the most poetic, the damaged soul of a poet, you know, and we always, oh my God, that's perfect.
That's good with the glasses.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. So, and as on the writing side of it, we would all kind of, you were the first one to kick it off with the idea that Beast would quote something if there was a moment or a challenge to overcome. And then it became a sort of thing among the writers who could come up with the most obscure quote for Beast in a script. And
but it was perfect. It made the character so well.
This is back in the day when you didn't have the internet, and we have a Barrett's book of quotations back there.
Dusty old quote books that we dug through.
You literally flip through it and go, what is he trying to do? He's trying to get over something. Okay, jumping. That was how we found quotes back then.
Yeah, and my favorite, a lot of people like Wolverine best because he was the most colorful and intense character.
That is my favorite.
And that's hard to disagree with because and everybody liked writing for him. We actually had to work to not give him so many scenes because his character was so compelling, so we could balance it for everybody. But the character I empathized with most or felt closest to was probably Professor Xavier, because I was the kind of the father figure over these bunch of very different writers who were working for me, and I'd have 7 or 8 of them working out at the same time, giving me very different ideas about stories, and have to try to keep them all together and focused and working like a team. So I very much empathized with Professor Xavier.
That's awesome. In a way, you were Professor Xavier yourself, right? I mean, that's pretty cool. Which leads me to my next question. There's so many reasons why I love the X-Men animated series. The storylines were phenomenal. The character relationships with one another were amazing. Is there a specific storyline or character relationship you favored the most?
Well,
Rogue and Gambit.
Rogue and Gambit tends to be the one that sort of bubbles to the surface because it was so beautifully teased throughout the entire series run. But then on the Slave Island, on the reunion episode, they had that one moment where they could touch. Gambit, love you. It's like he doesn't even say "I love you." He
did it in third person.
Love you. It's, God, that is so perfect. Yeah. And they can kiss one time, but that was so perfect. I think over the 5 years, how that was the tension there. But I think each character had such a great relationship to each other character. Which was really neat for the show, especially as a writer, to have those tools to work with. Yeah, the little storylines in between one another were just amazing. It's incredible, honestly. Speaking of Beast, in season 2, where he gets to fall in love and has his heart broken in an episode called Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
Next season 3, I think Larry Houston called it out today. I forget which episode, but Beast is at a computer. And on the computer monitor, there's a taped photograph of Carly. So it's just an Easter egg callback, which is the woman he had to give up, to season 2. So it's like the stories, even though we didn't get to talk about them more or address them more, they were still remembered throughout the whole series run.
Yeah, we tried to think of them as real adults having real lives and real careers and real feelings for each other going through these 5 years of stories. And that was different from, we've been hired on bunches of other shows, especially kids shows, and they tend to always tell us to write down to kids or make it really simple or don't make it so serious. The kids just want to have a lot more humor in their shows. And we find that one of the things that drew so many millions of kids to our show was that people took the responsibility seriously in the show, and they took the relationship seriously. And that I think that made them more human and made them more real than in some of the other shows we've been able to had a chance to write on.
Yeah, it definitely did. And like I said, you guys did a great job with it because so many of us can relate to a lot of different stories there. So for sure. Why don't you ask your next question?
We love the voices behind the X-Men. Talk to us about matching the voices with the characters and bringing them to life. Yeah,
because you guys, I know, they fit so perfectly. It's incredible. It really is.
30 years later, and I always sort of tease, I'm not going to argue with Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. He's Hugh Jackman, it's for goodness sakes. But the voice I hear in my head when I see an image of Wolverine is going to be Cal Dodd, who was the guy who voiced our Wolverine. And the show, there you go, Wolverine. The whole show is done on such a shoestring budget that we were writing and producing stuff in Los Angeles. The voice talent was all based up in Canada.
3,000 miles away in Toronto.
Because it was a cheaper deal for the company to find talent in Toronto than it would have been to have them, in Los Angeles.
Right.
And then everything got animated overseas. So while So one of the things you were doing while the rest of us were writing scripts and stuff, you were trying to figure out how to voice this show, because this is the first time there was going to be an effort made. They've shown up in other things, but like, who would voice these characters?
And I think it was an interesting situation. This is, I don't know if it's a lesson for people involved in difficult group projects like trying to do a TV show, because there's so many hundreds of people involved in a TV show. But when we first started out, we had half a dozen things the first season go very, very wrong, and they were very scary to us. And like, oh, if this continues, it's going to ruin the show, kind of things. And one of the things is that actors, good actors that had done kid shows before this, had tended to almost always make the voices cartoony and silly and a little larger than life.
Because that's what the shows were.
Yeah.
And that's what they were.
And it fit those shows. It's just, that's what they were used to. And we sent up notes, and we sent up these very serious scripts and saying, please, no, this is different, try this other thing.
To Toronto.
And we get the tapes back, and they just didn't quite get it. I mean, I think they maybe thought they understood how much we wanted things changed, but they really didn't. So there was a first run where we heard Night of the Sentinels, both episodes, and they were just awful. It was like Scooby-Doo doing Night of the Sentinels. It really was. No. And so I think as a result, this ended up being a good thing. As a result, everybody down here who cared about the show went crazy and said, we've got to fix this.
Fix it now.
Yeah, we got to fix it now. So a couple of guys from here, Sydney and Larry Houston, went up there, and a couple people from Marvel went up there.
From New York, because that's where Marvel was.
And spent 2 weeks recasting with the idea that, we not just going to the first cartoon voice they could find, but going to their big theater community, like in New York and Los Angeles. They have a huge theater community in Toronto, and say, get us some serious voices, people that really know how to act, know how to make something dramatic. And so it's like they overdid it, and just to make up for this very scary first misstep that we thought was going to ruin the show. So I think if the first voices had been kind of okay, no, they would never spent the money or the time to try to fix them. They said, oh, that's good enough. But since they were so wrong, we really put in the effort to get the most intense version of each one that we could, and it paid off.
George Bouza, who's our voice of our Beast, is the fellow who was big in the Toronto theater scene. I remember, I think we mentioned that he asked Sydney, I wanted the executive, well, how am I, okay, he's intellectual, how am I supposed to make him sound? And Sydney says, don't make him sound blue. It's like, okay, but again,
don't think of him as a silly
big
cartoon character. Thinking of him as a serious scientist with a big heart that happens to be thrown into the situation, And you've
got that fun story with Bob Harris and Cal Dodd. So Bob Harris was the fellow at Marvel in New York, who was like your interface,
who was working with us, and he'd been reading the X-Men comics for 30 years. It began in 1963. Since he was a kid, he loved them. He memorized it. He's working for Marvel. He is the senior editor and executive editor in charge of. They have 3 series of X books going at the time. He is their Mr. X-Men. So he's the guy that I'm sending faxes, because there's no emails.
No.
So I'm sending faxes to every night saying, is this the way Storm would react here? Is this the way, because he knew, he was like the main guy. So he's up there while they're getting the voices, and for the second run.
In Toronto.
In Toronto. So he goes from New York up to Toronto, and he has this amazing experience, because he's been hearing these characters in his head for 30 years. And now suddenly he's seeing actors in the sound room like Cal, or like Lenore Zahn doing Rogue, or any of the, or Beast, and he's having them come to life. And he said it was the most surreal thing. It's like the hair on the back of his head, neck stood up, because they weren't exactly what he'd heard all his life, but he knew these characters better than any of the actors in that room that day, and yet they were giving life to them in ways he hadn't quite ever been able to imagine before. And he said it was the coolest part of the whole experience.
Yeah, I mean, listen, and like you said, Julia, anytime I read a comic book, I hear Cal Dodd as Wolverine's voice. I hear Rogue. I hear Beast. I mean, they matched them so perfect to their storyline too. Because when you read some of the things that, or when you hear, for example, Beast talking, he's very Shakespearean, right? And George did a great job, you know, making that character be who he is in the animated series. Same thing with Cal Dodd, Rogue, basically everybody. There wasn't really anybody who I would say didn't really match the voice. Like, it was so perfect. You know, Cal Dodd being Wolverine, angry little stubborn guy, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, the voice is just, I love it. So that's kind of cool story. Here's the next question. This is a very a long one, but it's a good one. So comic book characters and fans usually relate to one another due to real life circumstances or scenarios. In the X-Men animated series, there was a lot of positive and negative things that brought viewers together with the cartoon, like social issues, women empowerment, the power of friendship, exclusion, love, discrimination, and other world issues. As writers, was there anything that you related to that was important for you to include in your storytelling? And did you find yourself having to be more creative because it was a kid's show and you had certain guidelines to follow? I know that was a long one.
I'll start, but as the wonderful thing about working on X-Men as a writer was the president of Fox Kids Network at the time, a woman named Margaret Lesh, had been working at Marvel for a few years, several years before she became the president of Fox Kids, and she was in love with the X-Men property. She tried for years to sell it to ABC, NBC, CBS. No one was interested. So when she became president of Fox Kids, she said, "We're making this show." With that edict, she also said, "Don't talk down to kids. You know, this material is tough. You know, you write up to kids. Don't ever talk down to them." And I remember being, as a writer of children's TV animation, being genuinely stunned and surprised by some of the opportunities we were given.
Right.
And Eric, you and your head writer Mark Edens, as you were,
right?
Because just a note here to look back on the time, I was hired for a script. You were hired to story run 13 episodes because they had no idea if it was going to be a hit or not. They assumed we're going to run it for 13 episodes, but we don't know if it's going to go for another season or not.
And it will probably fail.
It'll probably fail. So at the end of that time, we were all let go before they discovered, hey, it's a hit. We want to do a few more seasons. But so you guys were determined to tell the strongest stories you could in those 13 episodes to establish who these people were.
The world, and part of it was, you're right about writing within kids TV. Yeah. It's okay, you know, some of the things aren't that big a challenge. Just making sure the language is clean is not that big of a challenge. You know, there's versus say writing for primetime adult dramas or for HBO or something that was more adult. But keeping the stories a little simpler. That's not the big thing. I think in previous series, people became unambitious when you said it was kids. It's just flashy colors to them. They're not going to pay attention, so we won't get ambitious with our stories. We wanted to be just as ambitious with our stories and have them be just as dramatic and just as intense as the most intense stuff on at night. Dramas, and so if we couldn't necessarily show the violence that they could or the sexuality that they could in primetime television, we made it more character intensive.
Right.
More like, you're tearing my heart out here. And you can say stuff like that and kids get it, even if they don't quite get, say, like a marriage breakup, but they would get, if you're 5-year-olds, you get it if you've just lost your best friend, or if you've had a disappointment, or if you have to make a big sacrifice for someone. And that was, we were handed the X-Men, which is all about heroism. And so we wanted to make sure that 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 people understood, okay, there's sacrifice, there are stakes involved in heroism. We didn't want to just play act at it and, you know, shoot at each other a little bit and then everybody goes back and laughs and nothing was really at stake. So if we're going to do a superhero story, we want heroics, and heroics means heroic sacrifice. And so Mark and I, our first tough question we asked the network was, we really need to kill somebody in the first story. I mean, not to be cruel, but we need Morph. We needed to show that what the X-Men is doing has consequences. And so as they're trying to be good people and as they're trying to do all they can to be heroic, someone needs to be sacrificed so that we
part of the hero's journey.
Yeah,
classically.
So that we can see what it means to this team to be an X-Men, because there are sacrifices, there are costs to being an X-Men and to doing heroic deeds.
And also not having them set up against other mutants right out the gate, but having them set up against the Sentinel program, which some ugly humans had set up because they don't like the mutants.
Right.
Really shifted the dynamic, I think, in an amazing way.
Yeah, I think when we look back at all those 25 years of comic books that have been written, there seemed to be basically two kinds of stories. One were kind of like professional wrestling kind of stories, like, no, I've got more mutant powers. No, I've got more mutant powers, and they kind of beat on each other for most of the comic book, and somebody wins. And that's it's cool, especially the younger kids. That there's always an interest in that kind of competition among different characters. Mm-hmm. But to me, that was much less interesting than the situation of mutancy has started up and it's freaking out the majority of humanity. You've got 99% of the world that's normal human, and you've got this new group of people that, because they're special, because they're unique and different, is making everybody nervous. And that came all to this idea of exclusion and minorities and the struggle of people that are different. And those, so Mark and I were looking at stories, okay, that's what we're going to latch on to. And we're going to lean the show more towards that than towards the big battles. Big battles will be there. It's like gunfights in a Western. You got to have them. But but the stories were about the characters, and since it was about the X-Men, you know, our first question to ourselves was, why are they being X-Men? Well, they need to be X-Men because of this human reaction to mutants coming up, and so that we built a lot of the stories around this. Look, guys, these differences are happening. We understand why you're scared, but we're gonna have to learn to live together, or it's gonna be a civil war.
Yeah.
And Xavier exists to argue that we need to live together, and Magneto exists to argue that we need separation. Yeah. And they're both reasonable positions to have, and that's why I think that dynamic worked so well on our show, and ended up working so well in the movies. Those two guys are best friends, but they have very strong beliefs that are so different that they respect each other and they love each other, but they've got they're adversaries, they're not enemies. Yeah.
And like I said, I mean, listen, I remember the Morph episode right off the back, and one of my favorite moments was when Wolverine came out the jet and just sucker punched Cyclops and basically showed that without words, right? Because I think that's another powerful thing, that he kind of failed as a leader type of thing. Another one that I could remember was when Beast was almost free to leave the jail when Magneto came to take him out, and Beast was like, no, I'm gonna do this the right way, because if I don't, it's not what we're here for.
Civil disobedience.
Correct. And the fact that they were mutants and they were different, and people sometimes don't like difference, so I really love the character relationships with one another, like you said, with Magneto and Professor X. So again, very well done, and the fact that you guys brought those issues to life too. Now let's talk about, I know that was a little bit more serious, right?
But that's what we're here for, the whole conversation.
Correct. But let's talk about something cool, new, and exciting. So many things have changed, right? Since the X-Men animated series came out in the 90s, but the memory is still holding strong. Since then, the X-Men animated series has been released to DVD and Disney Plus, right? There have been new toys and statues from the series, and you guys are now have a social media presence. So we showed these Kotobukiya statues before.
Oh, yeah.
Those are spectacular.
They are.
Yes.
We did episodes on these. We did 3 episodes. We tagged you guys on it, obviously. Super cool. But your most recent addition to your journey is this thing right here. This amazing book that I've been so excited to talk about.
Thank you.
This thing is amazing.
4 pounds.
4 pounds. 4 pounds of art.
It is a very thick and heavy book, which means it's well worth it, right? The art in the cover, as you guys could see, and even the back, I mean, from the gate, from the minute that I opened the package and looked in this book, I was like, wow, this is gonna be serious. Ileana loved it too. She was like, oh my goodness, right?
I want to point out, Larry Houston
And Rick Hoberg.
and Rick Hoberg, who are 2 major main artists on the show, who are both enjoying their semi-retirement now, chose to do the front and the back covers for this book because they so loved working on the X-Men. So that's authentic X-Men art from authentic X-Men animated people.
And I'm
right
glad
there.
they did, because they did a great job. And we also tweet out to Mr. Larry Houston on Twitter
Yes,
too,
Mr. Larry Houston.
all the time. Yep. So
X-Men director.
this book contains a lot of really cool things in it. And one of my favorite things, real quick, before I actually ask the question, because I'm so excited about it. Let me see if I could find it. But like in here, you see a bunch of cells and stuff, which I love cells. But look at this. This right here. Look at that. Look at those 2 lovebirds.
I forgot my pink tie.
Yeah.
I have to put my pink bow tie in.
Guys,
My glasses are smaller.
Yeah.
My glasses have gotten smaller.
that was only 30 years ago, guys.
That is super cute. When I saw that, I was like, oh, look at these 2. I mean,
that was when we were at Disney and we were engaged.
That was our engagement.
But
Really?
we weren't married yet.
Right.
Okay.
That's
Hey, that's sweet. I didn't know. But, talk to us about how you got the call from Marvel after so many years to work on this book.
Well, I'm gonna hold this up while he talks about this.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Let's hold that book up. Well,
There we go.
5 years ago, it'd been a while since the show's playing in various places, and we knew that millions and millions of people enjoyed it.
But no one owned the rights yet. Marvel was in bankruptcy. Everything was falling apart.
Because of business problems. 2 different, Disney and 20th Century Fox each owned part of the rights to the TV show, and so we couldn't call either one of them or Marvel about doing anything like doing a book about the show because they weren't interested. So, oh no, these other people still own part of the rights. It would be a big fight. We don't want to enrich our competitors. So don't even call us about it. So we thought, well, if this is the way we're stuck, maybe we probably know better than anybody, and we've got more stuff squirreled away from the show.
We had everything up in boxes above our garage that we had just back in the days.
All the scripts,
computer stuff wasn't around then.
All the scripts, all the
everything was on paper.
storyboards. And so we thought, okay, we could do a book of this because we know where everybody is. We can get their phone numbers. We can call the cast. We can call the artist.
No one's ever done it
call the
yet.
executive, and nobody's made a book. And if we don't do it, it probably won't get done. And still nobody else has done it. So it could have been true. So we put about 3 years on this first book.
Came out in 2017.
Where it's 450 pages of dense. It's a couple 100,000 words of 36 interviews with the cast and crew and executives and everybody that made the show, with a detailed history of how the show got started and how long it took to get on the air and all the problems we had and some of the fights we had and all the great things that happened and all the wonderful people that worked on it. So it's a real living history of. So that book went out. We got a very small publisher in California, Jacobs Brown,
who've been very good to us, and we really appreciate.
Wonderful
that.
people, and they got this book. They did this book with us, and basically let's do exactly the book we wanted to do, and they were very supportive of that. They got the book out, but it's a small thing. We had it wasn't really in bookstores. We would take it around to cons and sell it there. Yeah. People would buy it on Amazon, or people would buy it from the publisher. But it was kind of, okay, we documented what what happened in this wonderful show that almost everybody we talked to said it was the favorite show they ever did.
Yeah.
So that was a very exciting time. Those 3 years working on that book, getting to know some of these people. We'd never spoken to the cast before.
Ever. Until
Ever.
he did the book.
So I was able to get to know everybody. And then we've started going to cons with them, and it's become a really good thing. But the doing of the book gave us something to talk to the people at Comic Cons about, saying, we'll talk about the book and bring Larry and maybe a couple of the cast members, and we'll do a panel. And so this was our entryway into the world of the Comic Con.
We hadn't been doing Concert Fest because there wasn't, we can't draw you a picture, we can't do a voice memo for you. This turned out to be an entree for us into that universe, and it's been fabulous.
Right. So 2 years ago, we get an email from Hi Muckety Muck at Marvel.
Because Disney Marvel had just just merged.
They Disney Marvel just bought 20th Century Fox, so they have the rights to X-Men. And we're, it's in the back of our mind, well, maybe someday we can talk to Disney about doing another book and then maybe use some of the artwork. And we get this email from a guy we hadn't met before, named Sven Larson, a wonderful man, head of worldwide licensing.
Which got our attention. It's like, oops.
And we thought, oh no, we're getting an email from them saying, we've seen this book you've written without our permission, and we're going to come down on you,
Oh no.
Yeah. So that was the first sentence. We thought it was, but we get through it. We realize, no, he and his staff at his office love the book. And now that the rights are all coming together, they'd love to do an art book with us. So this was his idea, and he made it possible. They picked Abrams, which is a really, a great art book company. They've done lots and lots of shows, books on lots of shows. So Abrams is very experienced with it. So it was Sven's idea to have us do it, and he and the people at Abrams believe that the people involved in making the show tend to make the best editors or writers of the books about the shows. Doesn't always have to be that way. It could be a third person come in and interview folks.
And if we couldn't do it or didn't choose to do it, they were still going to get the book.
They were still going to do the book.
They wanted to do an X-Men art book, and they asked, they called us. So
as they should have. I mean, that's great. I mean, listen, the first book was amazing, right? It didn't show obviously as many pictures as this one does, and I get why, right? Because different times and there's cost to it. But what a way for that book that you did first, the previously on X-Men, to segue into something like this. And if you're a true fan or a collector, to have both books, they're great companion books, right?
Thank you for that. I think so. I truly do. You've got all
I want
the
to show a little bit of this because it has all kinds of cool things. Like, I love cells. This cell right here is probably me and Ileana's favorite because it's Wolverine and Beast, right?
Perfect. Yeah.
So, but it shows, final products of what the characters look like, which, as a fan, I watched the cartoon obviously, and I got the comic books, but I didn't really know all the little details on how much stuff, especially during a time where internet wasn't really a thing. You guys did so much work to put something together for so many seasons, and man, what a great turnout. And you could tell by the end product how much hard work was put with everybody, including you guys. So this kind of gives a real visual, right? To what it took to actually get things going for the animated series. And it has every single character I could imagine and more. I mean, there's some things when I was looking at this, like, wow, I didn't think they were going to include this in this book.
And a lot of folks today, it's a different process kind of to create an animated product, but back then it was literally all on paper, and from writing of the script, and then to the storyboarding, and then to the creation of the prop list. Oh, yep, there you go, Eric.
There's Gambit, Gambit and Rogue, the final models for the first season.
Yeah, with your Bible character model, character information there. Yeah. One of my favorite. Okay, if I can find it. For folks who are keen on why the X-Men look the way the X-Men do on the animated show.
Yeah,
Will Mineo.
Yeah.
Who was, what a formal title for
Will?
Will.
He was supervising producer in the show.
Yeah.
And he really formed the look of the show and was the head designer.
And so, but discussing the subtleties between Jim Lee art versus anyone else in the X-Men art universe, and how that came to become infused and become our X-Men.
Yeah.
There's an awkward Jim Lee story.
Oh.
Shall we share?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, it's in the book, so everybody knows about it. It's just no. This.
No. I'm just saying that Will Mineo found himself faced early on in the production with folks coming down and saying,
Not in the book.
Jim Lee.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. So,
Anyway, there was a move to change the art look of the show very early on in the show.
Gotcha.
And Will Mineo found himself in the awkward position of going, that's the wrong thing to do. That would be the wrong thing to do, but how do I convince other folks that it's the wrong thing to do? So okay. You want new designs on this? I'll draw you some new designs for this with a straight face.
and he do terrible ones. So they
submitted them to Cole. Okay, here's your new design work for the series.
Oh no.
And they flipped.
Yeah.
In a good way for us.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's a situation where if you love comics, every artist has his own style.
Mhm.
Right.
And that's one of the things that people love about comics is if you've followed X-Men for it's almost 60
Good Lord.
60 years now that they've been going
Yeah.
from 19. Yeah, I'm doing the math right. There've been so many artists that have worked on it. And if you're an experienced animator like Will was, he knew what would work well in animation and what wouldn't.
Mhm.
I mean, a lot of the detailing, every single thing that you draw in animation, you then have to move. You have to redraw. And so if there's way too much detail, it kind of weighs it down and it makes it much more expensive, and it takes away from everything else that you're trying to do with the show.
Hello, Mr. Sinister.
Yeah. So Will understood that the streamlined look that Jim Lee had was the closest and best and freshest, and was actually very current. He loved some older stuff. He said he loved stuff from the 60s. He loved Jack Kirby. He loved Steve Ditko. He loves also, but he realized that of all the different artists we could start with for the show, Jim Lee's was the best place to start, and he fought for that during a couple dust ups about which way it should go. But that was his doing, and he was the heart and soul behind getting the look that you saw.
Yeah, again, just speaks to the amount of work that had to be put into this, and it came out great. And I love Jim Lee. I love his art in the X-Men comic books. I have a bunch of them. But yeah, definitely good influence too. And obviously the best question is, Yana, go ahead.
Where can our viewers buy this book?
Ooh, that's the
Best.
excellent question. That's the best one all day so far. We're encouraging folks, wherever you are, to shop local if you can.
Okay.
If you have a comic book shop you go with, or if you have a local bookstore,
They may have it. They should have it.
if not, they can order it for you. And we really encourage you to do that. I know everything's instant gratification. You can get it on Amazon, and sales have been very brisk on Amazon, but you can get it on Amazon. But we'd also suggest, call your local shop and just see if they can order it for you.
Or if they have it in
or if they
stock.
already have it in stock. Yeah.
And that's a nice thing. A number of online places have it. I think Walmart and very a lot of big stores online have it, but everybody's knee-jerk thing is to go to Amazon, and that's fine if that's what works for you. But we were thrilled to find out that lots and lots of local bookstores here in Los Angeles are stocking up on it. We signed 40 or 50 copies for a place called
Dark Delicacies in Burbank.
Which is a great place. And so it's just nice to know that people are supporting. Yeah, there you are.
Hello.
Yeah, you got a signed version.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's
Love it. I love it. It's the best thing ever.
Oh, very nice, very nice.
Yeah,
But
for sure. We're gonna have some links in our bio of the video for people to go and obviously order the book if they want it. Both books, by the way. But obviously encouraged to go to your local comic book store, right? Because they're in the forefront and they're selling it, and as they should, because it's a great book. I mean, if you're an X-Men fan, period, I don't see why don't you have this part of your collection? So I love it, and I know off air I've told you guys before. Now as an adult, I've been at Comic Cons where before it wasn't a thing for me. I couldn't afford it, and I've always dreamed to meet you guys. And for a minute there, it was almost not like possible because there wasn't social media. Everything kind of disappeared for a little bit. And now with modern times and social media and you guys being back, I'm like, man, I cannot wait to catch these guys either in New York or somewhere. Obviously we're from Jersey, so I'm like, man, it's a long shot to begin with, but I have to meet these guys. And now, hold and behold, you guys are here. So, I mean, that's like the biggest dream of mine, to meet you guys, because you're the core of the show. So for real, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity and sending us this book. And I hope our fans from Toyquest101, love this interview, because we're always tagging you guys. We're always doing X-Men animated series episodes. And it's, again, thanks to you guys. So for sure, get the book, guys, because it's great. I'm telling you, I only showed you a couple pages because I don't want to, be a tease and show you everything, but you got to look at this book. It's great. One last question, which is important to us for Toyquest101. I'm going to have Ileana ask it. Go ahead, Ileana.
Toyquest101 is a show that inspires kids with autism and special needs worldwide. What advice would you have for kids trying to pursue writing?
Long story short here, the cons and fests that we've been able to go to with Larry Houston, and we find ourselves with our tables side by side. So often a young artist will come up to Larry and say, I want to be an artist, and he would just say, so what have you drawn today? And I realized that's, oh wow, and oh well, I've got this. He said, you know what? Draw something today. Just get that muscle going. And it's the same thing for writing. If you're a writer, wherever you are, when I was in Texas, my spiral notebooks, I used to sit there and just write stuff, just poetry, short story, just notes, whatever, whatever. Just go ahead and write. Just give yourself permission to write, good, bad, or indifferent. Just start doing it. So you get that. So you get, like I said, the muscle memory. Yeah. So you get kind of comfortable doing it.
And the more you do it, the better you get at it.
Yes.
If you can got some people you trust that will read it for you and give you an honest reaction to it, because sometimes it feels like it's good to you, and you haven't maybe communicated what you hope to in the words, and other people can tell you, well, you may have meant to do that, but I'm not seeing it yet on the paper. Give it another try. Don't be afraid of revising things. A lot of people out here in Hollywood say writing is rewriting.
It really is.
You kind of get an idea for a story down, and you work at it and fine tune it and get it better and better and better, and you keep after it. Some people are more just, they get it more in their first or second shot, but it varies per person. But the story I always use is a lot of the people that we knew at Disney, and we knew about 100 wonderful artists at Disney TV. At Disney, there were about once a quarter, or so 3-4 times a year, they'd have, the professionals would let artists from outside come and show their portfolios.
Portfolio day.
Yeah, well, you bring your portfolio with all the stuff you've drawn and show it to the Disney professional artists to see if maybe they might want to hire you.
Right.
And we tell writers that in that situation, the artist has spent days, weeks, months, years drawing something every day and improving stuff, maybe throwing some stuff out that didn't work so well, but working at it. So when they come, they get that special opportunity, and they get someone that could hire them to look, they've got dozens and dozens of things to show them. They don't have, well, I've had some ideas about some stuff. They have stuff they've actually completed,
right,
to show them. And it's the same thing with writers. Mm-hmm. When I had that opportunity in 1984, when my friend said, they're hiring extra people at Hanna-Barbera, do you have anything to show my boss?
Which would be a spec script in our world.
The head of the company, because I could take it in tomorrow and she could look at it. If I hadn't finished, say, 2-3 dozen short to long scripts by then, I might not have had something that was appropriate. He needed something short, he needed something funny, he needed da-da-da. So I had a sample sitcom script from a show I liked. And so that went in, she liked it enough to say, oh, this looks like this guy can write. But if I hadn't finished anything, I would have just had to shrug and say, no, I'm sorry. Tell her I'd love to write for Hanna-Barbera, but I don't have anything to show her. So writing every day not only makes you better, but when you look up, you're going to have all this stuff that you put in your closet or in your drawer or in your shelf that you've saved, that you've written, and you don't know which one they're interested in. This lady might have wanted something long and dramatic. Who knows what she wanted, but she wants something short and funny. And I had a couple of those, and that got the door open for me for a 35-year career, because I'd been working at it for 7 or 8 years, and I had something to show, as opposed to just, well, I've been thinking about it.
These great ideas. As much as I love a great idea, I am telling you, no great idea has ever gotten made, but the world's worst scripts have. So keep that in mind. The world's worst. That's you know, so
for the people that want to write, just go right ahead and write. Don't worry about it being wonderful the first time. It wasn't wonderful the first time for any of us. And just if you want to do something easy, take your favorite TV show and write a story for it.
Yeah, you got a cell phone, go to your notes app and just like you come up with an idea, write the idea down. You know, put something on somewhere. Doesn't have to be on paper.
And then you can come back to it.
Yes.
If it's not going anywhere, you can set it aside, and then maybe a month later, the rest of the idea comes to you and you finish it up. You don't worry about it. It's not like it's a job that somebody's going to be evaluating yet. You're doing it for yourself. It's like people that work out. You know, you can't say, well, I've got all the equipment and I'm going to start lifting one day.
Right.
You know, you got to lift 3 times a week, and you got to write 3 times a week if that is what you want to get accomplished.
Yeah, and that's good, man, because we, you know, we're mainly a kids show. We have viewers from all around the world, and a lot of them are kids, and a lot of them need inspiration, especially from somebody with the talent of you two being on the show. So I want to thank you for that. And we have a lot of kids that have autism and special needs watching too, because that's what our show is based off of. So you saying that might open up a lot of eyes around the world and get somebody to, who knows, maybe write the next Xmen story. So thank you for that.
That'd be wonderful.
That would be wonderful.
And truly, just if that's what, if you want to draw, if you want to write, or if you want to do anything creative, just do it. Give yourself permission to just do it. You know, I don't know. We've got stacks of stuff around here that's not finished. You know, not all done.
Or never got produced.
Or never got produced. But just do it. Give yourself permission. Just do it.
Absolutely.
Please, you'll have so much more fun if you do.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that's awesome. Let's get to a fun part. This is the last segment of the show. So usually we have guests live with us on the show. Because of the pandemic, obviously we're forced to do this, but it's okay because, you know, it's great to have you guys on, right? You guys are all the way in Canada, right? No.
California. We're here in Los Angeles area.
Right, here in California, and we're in Jersey, so it's kind of cool to get us together this way.
This is nice, yeah.
So we're going to do a little game. And this is going to be fun because we are going to quote certain lines from certain characters from the X-Men animated series, and you guys are going to have the chance to tell us who it was, and for extra credit you could tell us where it happened or what scene or
okay.
All right.
Fingers crossed.
They might start off a little easy and they might get a little harder, but we'll see. So let's start with the first one. I think this one's an easy one. Hey, Tin Woodsman, I'm sending you back to Oz in pieces.
Pieces.
She finished it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that would be Wolverine in the 2-part opener. The Sentinels.
I love it. That's so great.
I love the Sentinels talking to a Sentinel. Yeah.
Great.
And by the way, just gotta shout it out there to the Sentinels. That was again a genius move having them in the show.
As the main.
Wolverine could not, because of restrictions, he could not harm another sentient being.
He couldn't slash anybody.
But boy, could he take out those Sentinels.
Yeah, he did.
And you mentioned earlier when he came down the stairs out of the Blackbird and came down and just clocked Cyclops.
Hit him in the stomach. That was the only time we were allowed to do it.
Shout out to Avery Coburn, who was the broadcast standards and practices lady over at Fox Kids. If she hadn't understood X-Men, it would never have worked. But she understood in that moment him punching.
That was his grief.
That was his grief.
It wasn't gratuitous. So she got it. She allowed it. But if you notice, nobody punches anybody else for the rest of the 76 episodes.
Oh, I haven't, but
like
now that I think about it, that's amazing. I never knew that, so that's a good tidbit right there. I didn't know. Listen, I love Wolverine. When he goes, I'm gonna try to do my Wolverine impression. When he goes, tell Cyclops I made him a convertible, and he just
there you go.
Love it. So
Very
hopefully
nice.
one day I'll get Cal Dada on the show. I've been in communication with him, so fingers crossed.
Good. Okay.
Good luck.
Love him. All right, so here's another one. To paraphrase the bod, I am a mutant, have not a mutant senses, affections, fed with the same food, warmed and cooled by the same winter and summer as a human is. If you prick us, do we not bleed?
That's Beast at the courtroom in episode 3, and it's paraphrasing Shakespeare's The Merchant of Venice.
And doesn't the judge say, "Don't tempt these people, Mr. McCoy"?
That's awesome. That is awesome. That line right there was incredible too. And when he said that so passionate, I was like, "Oh my god."
I had thought that. A thing you and I went. The thing that I only found out 30 years later. He's got multiple PhDs. But he is not Dr. McCoy in the show. He is Mr. McCoy.
Oh.
And I'm a Star Trek freakazoid, and you are too, old school.
So
It's
we tried not to have people say Dr. McCoy because it would they'd say, "Oh, is that the guy from Star Trek?"
Star Trek, yeah.
So we tended to not let him use the doctor name.
All right. Another tidbit I did not know.
Small tidbit. There you go.
I love it. All right, here's another one. Ready? It's a short one. Life don't get better than this.
I'm going to call that out as Gambit.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
And, oh golly, where are they? They're not. It's not on the ski trip. It's oh God, dang it.
I can't take it. I think it's the first season.
I can hear him.
Yes.
Yeah.
First season.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And it's not when it's not when you meet him with the girl in the card store.
Shop.
No, I can't remember the specific scene. That's the first scene.
It's when he blasts through the fence to kind of break in with the rest of the X-Men.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But that's good. That's good. That you
Night of the Sentinels. Okay, there you go.
Yes, Night of the Sentinels. Correct. All right. Here's the other one. Energy blast, huh? Here's one from a pro.
Night of the Sentinels out in the parking lot.
Cyclops.
That's awesome. All right, ready? You're as fast as a swamp bug on a hot skillet. Let's see if you're as nimble.
Rogue.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I didn't think you would get that one. I was like, man, that's a little, but that was good. That's good. I love her voice. Oh my gosh, she's amazing.
One more point, a thing that Eric that you've talked about often is that the X-Men themselves, even if we're not using their accents or voices, it's like each character was so easy to write for because they had such distinctive voices.
Yes.
I mean, even though Gambit and Rogue, were like Southern, generic Southern, it's like, no, that's definitely Rogue. That's definitely Gambit. Because everyone had their own voice.
Yeah, we worked really hard to keep everybody sounding as different from each other as possible, because we think that makes the writing better and it makes the performances better.
Listen, I'm not a voiceover guy, but if I could read these and somebody could tell me who it was, that says a lot. So that's pretty good. All right, ready? Here's another one. Are these the people whose laws you trust? They don't seem to share your sense of brotherhood.
That's Magneto, and it's like episode 4, and he's talking.
Was it Enter Magneto or no?
It's episode 3 or 4, but it's when you get to know him there, and he's talking to the X-Men as okay.
He's trying to break Beast out. He's talking.
That's it. That was it. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's so good. All right. I got a couple more. A couple more. Ready? Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, as seems evident.
I'm gonna say that.
Sounds like
Professor.
Sounds like
Beast.
Sounds like Beast to me, and Absolute power.
Corrupts absolutely.
I'm.
Seems evident. Shoot, no. Are we talking?
Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, as seems evident. I'll give you a hint. Mojo World.
It's not. Then that's got to be Beast.
That's got because Xavier wasn't up there.
It's got to be Beast, am I right?
Yeah. And it's because Mojo's jerking them all around and making them. He has power over all of them, and so he's messing with them all, and so that's thus the reference.
That is awesome. This is so cool. This is so funny. All right, ready? I got 2 more left, and we're good.
Okay.
All right, ready? Relax, Cyclops. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy.
Cyclops. That's either Wolverine or Gambit. Relax, Cyclops. Oh, Gambit.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah.
All work and no play makes.
Oh my God! I can't believe it. This is so cool. After how many years, and you guys are just—it's there. It's there. It's so cool. All right, ready? So you like playing God with mutant lives? Well, just keep away from my friends.
I think that's Cyclops.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh my God! You went 9 for 9. You didn't miss one. You didn't miss one.
Was that Savage Island or Savage Land? Shoot, I can just see him pointing at somebody.
Sinister.
And
That could
Mojo World.
Mojo
World.
It was with Sinister.
Sinister. Okay. Sinister.
Yeah,
all right. On the
on the island when he gets a certain power over. Yeah. When he gets his powers back, or when he's kind of gets the upper hand finally after Sinister's had them screwed for a while.
Just stay away from my friends.
Let me ask you this: have you guys gone and looked at the show again, like rewatched it?
We did for each book.
Okay.
For the first book, I watched all 76, and to make notes and detail my feelings about each episode. And for this book, again, we went over all 76 because they wanted like the at least some reference for each one,
right.
And it helped us remember, think about what would be important images to put in the book. So we've reviewed it twice in the last 5 years, but we hadn't really watched it much there's a gap there. There's about a 20 year gap there.
There is.
Seen it.
But we got it on Disney Plus now.
I know, it's so
exciting.
Easy.
Let me put it out in the ether. I would love it if someone would release a Blu-ray. We would love to get a Blu-ray with extras.
A lot of people ask for that too. It's crazy. But it's funny because I watch the show just to watch it, and I sometimes watch it. I have all the DVDs. I have Disney Plus as well. But honestly, I wanted to thank you guys because that concludes our show, for being on the show with us, supporting kids with autism and special needs, and being another guest on Toyquest101. Obviously, you guys can find us where?
On Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok.
All right, and always subscribe to our YouTube channel. And Julia, why don't you tell us where they could find you?
Hopefully we can see it back there. We are on Twitter at Xmentas, which is for the animated series.
Right.
We're also on Facebook. We're also on Instagram. And we have a web address.com, Xmentas. We need to go update that.
It's okay.
But please find us on Twitter if you can. Please.
Yep. And we always, for those who follow us, always know that we are constantly tweeting you guys and retweeting your stuff. So we're going to put all that in the link of the bio, the bio of the video, so that way our fans could reach out to you guys and we keep this memory alive. I really hope that somebody gets a call to maybe start adding to these episodes. Maybe we could start a new, season. Hint, hint, Marvel. Hint, hint, Disney. Would love to see that. I'm sure everybody would, and I hope you guys get the call for it. I really do.
Thanks so much.
That's very kind.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll see you guys. Make sure to go get your book as soon as possible before they sell out, because they're going by quickly, right?
They are.
Fast.
Didn't know. Yes, the publisher have been very pleased. Been keeping very busy. So yay.
They said they sold about as much in the first month as they had hoped to sell in the first year.
What? That's incredible.
they're going
Good
like
for you
crazy.
guys. That I hope they keep doing more stuff with you guys. I really do. I really do. So thank you guys once again. And you guys, we'll see you on the next episode of Toy Quest 101. Bye, guys.